Hey, what's up YouTube? It's Randy, Creative Director here at Unique Design, and we're back with another episode on how to start a clothing brand, step-by-step process. Today's episode is going to be a pretty important episode for everyone who's starting out. Today we're going to talk about what blank t-shirts that you should use for your brand. Now, every brand doesn't use existing blanks, but obviously when you're starting out, you're going to be looking at the easiest way to get in, and by doing that, you're going to be using existing blanks. So we're going to cover everything on the basic brands that are out there. So let's go ahead and roll into this new episode. So a subject that I get asked a lot by a lot of clothing entrepreneurs, solopreneurs, are guys who want to start off and they want to know what t-shirts should they use when they print on and sell their brand. Now there's a bunch of different variables that go into that, so we want to kind of cover that for you today and kind of explain the differences between the blanks that are out there, the major blanks. There's a lot of companies out there, so we're just going to cover like the major companies and what separates them and what you should be looking for when you're launching a clothing brand. So before we jump into everything, like I always do, I want to ask you guys, please subscribe to the channel. Subscribe. The more subscriptions we have, the more content I can put out here. I want to put together some more downloadable content for you guys. So please subscribe. Also click like on the video and leave a comment. If you got any questions or concerns or anything that you want to see, comment down there. I get the notifications so I can check and I have a conversation with you guys. So definitely make sure you do that. So with that being said, let's go ahead and cover today's episode of which blank t-shirts should you use for your brand. One of the first things that I want to cover about which t-shirts you want to use are the kinds of builds. So what I mean by build is in the t-shirt world, they have what we call the standard build, which is more of a boxy service kind of build. Then we have the semi-fit. Some people call it the fashion fit. Some people call it the retail fit. And then we have fitted, which is more of a contouring shape. And I want to go ahead and show you some examples. So we're going to jump on the computer here and I'm going to show you the difference between these different builds. You see we have to the left right here where my arrow is. This says fashion or slim fit. And we call that the fashion or slim fit because it's a little bit thinner. You see this like colored box? This represents like the body, right? And you can see how like it's a little bit thinner on the body. The sleeves are a little bit smaller. Over here is what we call the standard or classic, and that's a little bit boxier, right? And it's has a lot more room into it, and the sleeves are a little bit bigger. The regular fit here, this is just the standard shirt. So this is one of the things that you want to consider. How do you want that shirt to wear on people or yourself, for your brand? So this is the first thing to consider because not all brands have all three different builds, and there's way more builds than this. This is just kind of the basic. We do have, we normally call them either standard, fashion fit, or fitted, which means it's like more of a compression or a lot tighter on you. But these are the three standard ones that almost every brand has, but not all brands have it. So you want to make sure that the fit that you want is available for the shirts that you want to use. So consider this first. The second thing I want to talk about which t-shirts you should choose is a tubular or a side seam shirt. Now, it's a little bit confusing for people that are out there that haven't seen these before, but I want to kind of show you some examples between the difference between a tubular shirt and a side seam shirt. So this is what a tube fitted shirt looks like when it's assembled. And it sounds weird when you hear a tube knitted shirt, but you see this is a tube that the fabric is kind of built around, so there's no side seams. They take one piece of fabric, cut open the area where the sleeves go, and they put in the neck. So that's what a tube knitted shirt is. And the reason why they do this is because it's cheaper to make. It's easier to mass produce. But you run into a lot of problems when you use a tube fitted shirt, especially for your brand, because first of all, the human body isn't shaped like a tube, right? And also the front and the back is cut exactly the same. They just throw the sleeves in there, so it doesn't really taper the way it should taper on your body. And third, sometimes we have a thing called torquing, where once this thing is sewn on a tube, sometimes one piece of the fabric goes up here and the shirt starts to twist. So as you wash it, you get this weird twisting thing. And I'm not saying you can't use them because they're a cheaper, more value brand. But that's you know, what a tube knitted shirt looks like. Now on the flip side, this is what a side seam shirt looks like. This pattern template is basically what they use to cut a shirt, and sometimes you'll see a little bit more of a tapered for the men's or women's. This one is kind of a standard one, that's why it's straight on the sides. Honestly, they're more tapered than this, but as you can see, the front and the back are separate pieces of fabric where they sew together where the armpits meet, you know, and it's tapered where the front sits lower than the back, you know, for your shoulders. And then you have the, you know, the sleeves, and then the fabric for the collar, where they insert different, you know, lycra or whatever. But that's what a side seam template looks like. So understanding the difference between that and a tube knitted shirt where, you know, it's knitted on a tube. So these are things that you want to consider, you know, when you're choosing the shirt for your brand. So I have some examples with me just to really quick show you the difference between a tubular and a side seam shirt. So the first one I want to show you, this is a Guild and Hammer standard, kind of what they use for the service industry. What I mean is like roofing, landscape, stuff like that, mechanics. This is kind of like a standard service shirt. This is what we call a tubular. So if you see the side of the shirt, there's no seam here. It's basically one piece of fabric that goes completely around the shirt. No seam whatsoever. All right. And then let me toss that aside. And then what I have here, this is kind of the go-to for fashion brands that are, clothing brands that are starting out that want to have that fashion fit. This is the next level, 3600. And this has a side seam. I'm trying to open this up for you guys. Shirt's so new, it's like brand new money, you know how it sticks together. But you see there's a seam that goes down the sides of the shirt. And instead of it being one piece of fabric that wraps around the whole body, it's a piece of fabric in the front that's cut and it's seamed. And then it's a piece of fabric in the back that's cut and it's seamed. Another thing to consider about what shirt you choose to pick for your brand is what kind of fabric do you want. The three major fabrics for apparel, for t-shirts, are 100% cotton, a blend, which is a 50-50, or we call CVC, or a tri-blend. The difference is 100% cotton is 100% cotton. So you have the most printing options when it comes to 100% cotton. The next thing is a blend, which is usually a 50-50 or a CVC, which is a 50% or 60% cotton. The remainder would be 50 or 60% polyester. The remainder would be cotton. Which the polyester makes the shirt a little bit more breathable. The polyester is moisture wicking, so it makes the shirt feel a little bit lighter. You do have less printing options. You can't discharge on that, and there's certain things, and we'll cover that in another episode. And then we have the tri-blend, which is probably the thinnest, softest out of the three, which is it's a blend of cotton, polyester, and rayon. That's what the three different kinds are, and it depends on what look and feel you want when you decide on what kind of fabric that you want for your shirt. Now, I would show you on camera, but you're not really going to see a difference, so it's just something that we can kind of maybe jump into another episode and go a little bit further on those different fabrics. All right, let's talk about the print feel of the shirt. Now, we're going to have a whole episode where we're going to talk about the different kinds of printing techniques and inks, but I just want to give you a quick rundown on the kind of print feel. And I got a couple samples here. Sorry, they're on the floor. I had a rack, but I don't know where it went. Let's kind of go over this real quickly. So this print feel has absolutely no feel to it all. You can't feel it. It feels exactly like the fabric of the shirt. This is called discharge. And so this is probably the softest printing that you're possibly going to get, because it's not really an ink. It's the color of the shirt has been discharged to get this image, and when you wear it, it won't crack, it won't peel, because it's literally inside the fabric. Okay, so that's water-based ink, and we'll get into that later. The next thing would be what we call in our company, we call this the EcoSol, and this is another water-based ink. It has a little bit of a hand feel, but it's soft, so you can feel the ink slightly, but it's soft, so it's not like a hard, thick one. You know, again, it's just what you want for your brand. And then here we have a plastisol. This is a PVC based ink. This is what 90% of brands use. just because a lot of screen printing companies don't know how to do the other techniques, which we do. But anyways, this is a PVC in it. Basically, it's a plastic-based, oil-based ink that has plastic in it, plasticizers, and you can feel the ink. The ink has a feel to it. The downside of this is that, you know, eventually it will crack, it will break off, no matter how well it's printed, just because it's ink on top of a shirt. And that's what a PVC plastisol ink is. So you want to consider what kind of feel that you want on your shirt for the printing when you're deciding what shirt to purchase. So also, when it comes to deciding what shirt you want to use for your brand, you got to think about, are you going to do embroidery? Are you going to do patches? Are you going to do labels? And that's not including the kind of printing, because if you're doing embroidery and if you're doing patches and you're doing labels, you want to figure out the kind of fabric. Is it going to hold up to embroidery without having a backing? Or if you want to put a big patch or a small patch, you got to think about those things, because the last thing that you want to do is source out your patches, your shirts, get it sewn, and it's going to tweak the collar, the sleeve or the front, or it's going to have that itchy fabric on the inside. So another thing you want to think about is, are you going to incorporate those on your line, or at least the shirts that you're going to be using for this brand? The neck labels on the shirt. Now, a lot of people don't think about that, but it's actually very important. So I'm going to show you two examples. Again, this is a next level shirt. This is we print these samples for customers that want to see, you know, different color samples. That's why you see it says unique design department color sample. But anyways, this is a next level 6210, and it has what we call a tearaway label. The label is basically designed where you can just tear it off, and it leaves a little bit of trace, but it's designed to just get torn off, and you know, that way you can print your own label on the inside or put a woven label if you want. So you want to, if you want to do a private label, you want to think about using a shirt that has tearaway labels. This is, I mean, one of my favorite t-shirts out here, blank brands, and this is called AS Color, and this is a brand out of Australia. I love the feel of these shirts, but they have a woven label, and the woven label makes it a little bit difficult, because when you want to get, you know, your brand on here, we got to actually go in here and we have to cut that label out and remove some threads before we can, you know, sew in your new label or print another label. So you want to look at if the shirt that you want to use has tearaway labels or woven labels, because that will change the price of your production on your end. And sometimes, depending on the kind of woven label, if it's a big fat woven label, it might mess up the integrity of the shirt once we remove it. And some people ask, hey, can I just get shirts that don't have labels? Actually, no, because you know, the FTC regulations in US is that every single piece of fabric that's produced to be resold, it has to have a label that has certain laws in it that tells you the country it's from, what kind of fabric it's in, care instructions, and we'll get into that later. But again, every single t-shirt has to have some kind of label if it's being resold. So you have to think about this. If you want to put your own branding on the inside, which I always 100% recommend, or if you don't. But the thing is, you got to know if it has that or not before you go ahead and place an order for, you know, thousands of shirts that are going to get relabeled or printed on. What colors are available? You know, what colors do they have that are readily available? You can always get custom colors made. You can get, you know, garment dye and stuff like that, but that's not really what this series is for. This is for like the solopreneur, the person starting out, where you don't have that kind of buying power, and you want to figure out what kind of colors are available in that particular brand. And what I mean is, here, I got some swatch panels. This is a Bella Canvas swatch chart, and you see the different color swatches, and it's important to get these actual color swatches in your hand. And if you guys can't get a hold of them, send me a message, email me. I can get these out to you guys depending on how many you need, but we can definitely help you out with that. You'll see, depending on the fabrics, like this is the heirloom jersey, the Heather CVC, the tri-blend. You can see not all colors are available in all different styles. Okay, so you want to make sure that depending on the style, depending on the fabric, I'm trying to fold this up the right way, that the colors you want are available. You know, and not everyone is the same. Here's next level, and as you can see, here's their fabric swatch chart. Depending on CVC, tri-blend, you know, and the other kinds of fabric they have, all the colors are not available in every style. So if you have particular colors that you want to use, and you know, you want to make sure that that brand has the colors that you actually want to use. If the colors aren't that big of a deal to you guys, then it doesn't really matter. But obviously when you're designing, you want to figure out, especially if it's an on-trend thing, you got to know what the colors that are selling are the hot colors, or what colors fit your brand. You want to make sure that that particular manufacturer has the colors that you want in your brand. So you really need to look at that. Looking online is one thing. And actually, we had one of our clients who did that. They looked at a color online from a Next Level shirt, and we bought, I think it was like 3,000 of that color, based off the color they saw on their monitor, right? The color on your monitor, everyone's monitors are calibrated differently, and then we actually got the shirts in there. They didn't look at a physical swatch, even though we recommended it. So when we got the color shirts, they thought it matched their brand 100%. Came in, looked at it, and said, "Oh, this is the wrong color," and we were able to make it happen for them. But we could have avoided that whole nonsense had they just asked to see an actual color swatch. By now, if you haven't realized that, I'm all about brands, growing up and doing streetwear, all about streetwear, it was all about brand names. But when it comes to printing your brand, you don't really want to use a brand name. The reason why I bring this up, because a lot of people say, hey, I want to use an American Apparel shirt. And American Apparel is a brand, just like everything else. But the thing is, you're paying for the name. So let's say if we're going to take an American Apparel shirt, we're going to tear the label out and we're going to put your own label in there. Well, you just paid for a shirt for a brand that you're not going to use because you want to rebrand your own brand on there, right? So there's comparable brands that basically have this, Next Level and Bella Canvas have shirts that are comparable to an American Apparel shirt, and you're not paying for the brand name. So think about that. It's like buying a Nike shirt or sweater, let's say a Nike sweater for, 80 bucks, and then you're gonna take off the Nike stuff and put your own stuff on there. Why would you do that when you can get, a comparable hoodie for $20, put your own brand on there, and then resell it? So think about a brand name like American Apparel or some brand names out there, like Built Basics or something like that. You probably want to stay away from, because why would you pay for the brand name when you're going to put your own name on the brand? So I just want to put that out there, because some people, they just associate that, not necessarily understanding that they can get a blank or private label equivalent to a name brand without having to pay for that name brand. So the main thing I always say is order samples. Order samples, order samples. If you guys can't find the brand you're looking for, you can order a sample from us. We'll ship it out to you, whatever it is. We buy at such a high volume that we go factory direct manufacturer direct, whether it's Next Level, Bella Canvas, AS Color. We don't go through distributors. We go direct because we order, such a high volume. So if there's a sample out there that you want to get, a few samples, just send us an email, and we'll charge you for the sample, mail it out to you. But you always want to have a physical sample of something. Try it on, see how it fits. Is it too baggy? Is it too loose? Is it too thick? Order samples far before you go out and ordering a whole bunch of them. Because sometimes, and I've been a victim of this, I've seen a brand that looked great on somebody else, and I got it, and I put it on, and I'm like, oh man, it doesn't look as good on me, or it doesn't feel like I thought it felt. So you definitely want to order samples whenever you're deciding on what you want to source. All right, so please, once again, if you haven't done it yet, you got subscribe. We need those subscriptions. Like this video, leave a comment, questions, concerns, send it down, and we'd love to bring out some more content for you guys. So thanks again for watching. I hope this answered a lot of you guys' questions. I'm pretty sure you're gonna have a lot more, but that's why we have this whole series. We're gonna keep answering more and more questions as we go. So thanks again for watching, you guys.